lunchtime and we are hungry, so we are going to use some of this sourdough discard before I feed it to make some pizzas. Now I've had my cast irons preheating in the oven. Oh, my sourdough is nice and thick and stretchy. But I've had my cast irons preheating in the oven at 425. These might be a little too thick, but I need to use some of this up. So I want about a cup or so down in this pan. I might need a little bit more with as thick as this is. I have some more discard in the fridge if I need to use it. We'll be okay. But by preheating our cast iron, we're going to get that nice crispy crust on the bottom. Let's see if I can spread it out. But we just preheated our cast iron to 425. I want about a cup of my sourdough starter down in my pan. Starter, discard, whatever you want to call it. I don't know the difference, besides discard is what I pull off. And I'm trying to play with all of this. So I'm just trying to spread it out. Now this is legit discard. It has been in the fridge for 24 hours. I'm just mixing it all back together. And you see even this one is nice and thick. I'm going to pour a little bit more in. And get that spread around. Now this does have wheat flour in it because we use whole wheat to feed our starter on some days, and I use bread flour on other days. So with the two of them on there, it's not nice and pretty, but it'll be okay. Want a little bit more oil on top. Some garlic salt to season our crust, and some Italian seasoning. I'm going to pop this back in the oven for about 10 minutes to let that crust start cooking. And I'm going to pull out my other pan, and hopefully it'll go a little bit more smoothly. So same thing, I oiled the bottom of my pan before I preheated it. Ooh, that's a lot more, but it'll be alright. And we're just pouring in our discard. That one moved around much more beautifully. Now we already know the first one is not going to be the pretty one. There's the pretty one. Now we're just going to add our sauce and our toppings. So I'm just using some jarred marinara. And we're not huge saucy people on our pizzas, so I'm not going to add a ton. But this has the nice big chunks of tomato that we like, so get that spread around. But if you like a lot of sauce, add a lot of sauce. Just make sure your dough is really pretty cooked before you add a ton of sauce so that you don't get it all doughy. And if you want a thinner crust, which we usually do like, just add some more water to your discard and it'll thin it out some. Which is what I should have done with that before I got going, but I didn't check it. I just went straight into this. Now for our pitiful amount of basil we have left, but we're going to use it up and not have any waste, so that's what matters. Lots of pepperoni. And some black olives, a few dollops of ricotta because more cheese, more better, and then all of our cheesy goodness. Alright, and these are going back in the oven at 425 just until it's all done. The cheese is nice and bubbly melted, and we are ready to eat lunch. I'm just going to cut into it and make sure that our crust is all the way done. Now, I assume this goes without saying, but this will be hot. There we go, y'all. Quick and easy lunch. And not a lot of ingredients. And almost no effort. So you got your nice crispy crust on the bottom. And even though that one is in pretty little shape, still delicious.
Say hi to the camera, Jolene.
Our next recipe that we're making is a blackberry sourdough cobbler. We're just going to start off by melting 1 stick of butter down in our 9x13 pan. And we're just going to put that in the oven and let it melt while our oven preheats and we get the rest of our stuff all together. So to our mixing bowl, we're just going to add about 3 of those 6-ounce pints that we've rinsed. To that, we're going to add in 1 1/4 cup of granulated white sugar. You need the zest of 1 lemon. Now don't go too far down in this. You'll get that white pithy part and that can make it super sour. So after you've zested that lemon, you just want to slice it and squeeze all of that juice down in your bowl with your berries. Mix it around and let it set while we make our dough for our blackberry cobbler. So for our dough portion of this recipe, we need 2 full cups of sourdough starter. Now this is when you've already fed your sourdough earlier in the day and it's like almost doubled in size, or it has doubled in size, and it's nice and bubbly and airy. I'm not sure what point it technically turns from a starter to a discard, but probably when it starts falling or it's not that risen bubbly texture anymore. After that, you add in your 1 cup of granulated sugar to the dough. Also, you're going to add 2 teaspoons of baking powder and about 1 teaspoon of salt. We're just going to mix this all around until it's just incorporated. And we'll pull our pan out of the oven. Our butter is all nice and melted and bubbly. And we're just going to pour our dough straight down on top of that butter. And if your dough doesn't spread itself all the way out, which most likely it will, but just kind of ease it into the corners. After you have your dough all poured in and spread out, you dump over all of that blackberry mixture. The sugar, the juices, the berries, everything. You want it all down in there. Don't mix it around, just let it set out as it is. Pop it back in the oven for about 45 minutes at 350. And here's our final result. We have a nice tangy flavor from the lemon and the sourdough, and that sweet flavor from our blackberries and all of that sugar. I think that it's best when it's warm just like this and doesn't even need any ice cream in my opinion. But if you want to add a scoop of vanilla ice cream or pour over some heavy cream, and just take it over the top. Oh my goodness, y'all. So we have bread rising right there, but Eleanor made some chocolate chip scones with our sourdough discard. They smell so good.